Hey there, welcome to the Mount Abugat project. My name is Kamil. Today is 15th of July 2025. Welcome to video number 69. As I said in a previous video, it looks like things start to happen. And I want to talk today about more of those that point to the fact that it's speeded up and more of them might happen that will have a global impact. So without further ado, let's look at those and see what we can expect. And the first thing I want you to look at is the situation with Iran. And the first video that we're going to watch is Scott Ritter's kind of comment on how it all started and what will be the consequence of this thing. So listen to what he had to say.
Ron.
As far as I'm concerned, we're already directly officially involved. Remember the president bragging about setting Iran up. Lulling them into a false sense of complacency. There were going to be negotiations on Sunday, this past Sunday. These were the serious negotiations. This was it. Time to get it out, and the Iranians were preparing for it. Their lead negotiator, Sham Khan, he actually had done an interview in the lead up to this, saying, "We're ready. We are ready right now to sign a treaty that says no nuclear weapons. We are ready to subject ourselves to inspections to cap our enrichment levels at 3.75% needed for the nuclear fuel. We're ready to do this right now." That's what they were ready to put on the table on Sunday. And Trump greenlit an Israeli surprise attack and then bragged about it. Bragged about the Iranians who were negotiators were now dead. Dead. This isn't a game. This isn't an academic exercise. The Iranian negotiator who was taking everything we were saying at face value, working with his government to come up with a solution to avoid war, was assassinated by the Israelis with the approval of Donald Trump, who then bragged about it. So we're already at war. This is our war. We're just using Israel as a proxy. The problem for Donald Trump is the war is not going well. We are now looking at a situation where Israel is losing this war and will lose this war. And they desperately need the United States to intervene to pull the chestnuts out of the fire, so to speak, for them.
So what we heard is basically one of the things that kind of turned some people away from Donald Trump. That first of all, he greenlit the attack on Iran, basically like 2 days before the peace talks that were scheduled. So they basically destroyed all the peace talks that they were preparing for. And second thing, we know what Donald Trump did, that he did attack Iran, and the U.S. bombers basically attacked the infrastructure in Iran. And this is another thing that turns people away from Trump, just because in the first term he didn't start any wars, and now he did this, and people say, well, this is not what we were voting for. But additional thing that it's good to understand is what was the result of the attack on the Iran infrastructure. Listen to Scott Ritter again.
I think we need to emphasize what you just said. It seems to be quite a show. This is an act of theater, nothing more. 3 empty sites were struck by the most advanced weapon systems in the American arsenal, so that the President of the United States could go before the American people and brag about how powerful the United States is. But the Iranians aren't fools.
And this is what Donald Trump said, just so you know.
Tonight I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier.
They know what the truth is. They know what America accomplished in this attack, which is literally nothing. 2 of the sites struck had already been struck multiple times by Israel. None of the sites had any sensitive equipment in it. And if the goal and objective was to eliminate or retard the Iranian uranium enrichment capability or the nuclear program, they failed. The enriched material, especially the 60% enriched material, has been sealed and hidden elsewhere. The sensitive, equipment that are stored in Isfahan has been evacuated. The centrifuges themselves are stored in secure locations. Nothing of significance was accomplished except a grand act of theater, which seemed to be um, done so that the President of the United States could save face. He had trapped himself and the United States into a very difficult situation by going along with an Israeli surprise attack against Iran, which has failed to accomplish its mission. The Iranians have been launching very effective retaliation, and the United States was left embarrassed. And so this attack was designed as I said, a grand act of theater so that the president could save face and potentially disengage from this fiasco.
So this is kind of interesting to hear that, because we can see the mismatch in between what Washington is saying about the attack and its results in comparison to people who are commenting. And he's not, Scott Ritter is not the only one who's talking about this, that it basically accomplished nothing. And so you see, again, the complications in the Middle East, which United States joined, kind of complicates the whole situation to the whole region, and even more just because now the Russia is involved. But I'll just show you one more thing, that even Rolling Stone is saying that they're leaking information, leaked reports finding Iran strikes weren't totally effective. So as you can see that there's more and more information now coming out that it accomplished nothing. It might be just a theater to hide something else which is going on, and we're going to talk about it later. And the second thing that I want to talk about is Ukraine situation, and the fact that in late May President Putin basically rejected peace plan. And interestingly enough, I don't want to go really deep into it, but I listened to the comments about this from some gentleman as well. I don't remember which one was it, but he said that the plan, or the pact, the peace pact, was kind of very juicy for Putin. Basically, it was giving him most of what he wanted, but Putin rejected it. And now I was thinking, well, what's going on in Ukraine then? And I want you to listen to what Colonel Doug Macgregor is saying about it. It's kind of interesting, and it might give us a kind of glimpse what might happen there.
This is a permanent point of friction with Turkey. The Turks would like to see the Russians leave, but they don't want a confrontation with the Russians. But they would like to control what today we call northern Lebanon, as well as this enclave of Syria that touches the Mediterranean. So the Turks have certain goals in the region. The Israelis have their own greater Israel goals. Azerbaijan wants to create greater Azerbaijan as part of a greater Turkic enclave or confederation, if you will, with the hope of eventually exercising some degree of hegemony over the region. Then you have Iran to the south of Azerbaijan that is preparing for another round in the war. I think they expect the war to restart probably in September. It will take that long for radars, missiles, munitions, and other things to find their way to Israel. So they're preparing for the next round of war. And at the same time, they're looking at this probable invasion from Azerbaijan, which they probably expect to coincide with an Israeli resumption of the war against them.
And that's the interesting part I want you to look at, because I don't think media are talking about it. The Azerbaijan part of this whole conflict in between US, Israel, and Iran, and Russia in the context of it.
Now, if you're sitting in Moscow and you realize all of these things have happened, it's unraveling to some extent Moscow's southern security area. In other words, Azerbaijan was seen as a component of Russian security strategy, as a friend, as someone that would be a force for stability. Azerbaijan has turned out to be the opposite. So the Russians are going, I think, to accelerate the end of the war in Ukraine. That may mean more devastation and death inside Ukraine, simply because no one will step forward in Europe or Ukraine to negotiate an end. But this incentivizes the Russians to move quickly. And when I say quickly, within weeks, to terminate what's happening in Ukraine. They need now to focus on the Caucasus. They don't want to become embroiled in a war in the Caucasus, but they can't stand by and watch this destabilizing influence that the Israeli, Azerbaijani, and American access is creating, because they can't allow Iran to simply be broken up. Now, keep in mind, Iran's not going to sit there quietly and allow the northwestern part of its country to be cut off and incorporated into Azerbaijan either. But these are all now connected. Everything that we're discussing is connected. And the Russians have a very powerful ground force, as you know, very powerful missile force. I think their armed forces, if you had to pick a time for them to operate and fight, is probably now better than ever. But when you put all of what I just discussed together, you get the rationale for what President Putin is saying. He's saying, look, we are at war. We are being attacked on multiple sides. We have to prepare for this. We have to be prepared to act decisively to win.
So that's interesting view on the things, and seeing Russian being attacked through the Ukraine, and now with the Azerbaijan operation of Israel and US kind of pushes Azerbaijan to attack Iran as well. So they have multiple fronts. So that's kind of interesting, and we'll see what's going to happen in Ukraine, because in the as of late, the attacks, Putin attacked Kiev and so on, and it looks like the multiplication or the increase in attack and its casualties and impact is seen kind of in the midst of the Ukraine conflict. So that these are the two things, basically, or the one subject of war. And we can see that it's getting much more complex and much more complicated in kind of getting this thing under control. And one thing that we touched already is why it turns people away from Trump, which complicates the situation in US as well, and again divides people. But the second thing that showed up lately that kind of adds the fuel to the fire is this thing.
Be convicted of 34 crimes, but no one on Epstein's list has even been brought to light. I'm trying to figure out how that's possible, right? But it's almost like they're trying to protect those pedophiles for some reason. I can't imagine why, right?
Why is the FBI protecting the greatest pederast, the largest scale pederast in human history?
Simple, because of who's on that list.
Everybody in politics has a vice that's much worse than alcoholism, is the way that I put it. But we
Release the list.
Seriously, we need to release the Epstein list. That is an important thing.
The DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients? Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review. That's been a directive by President Trump.
In this case, in Epstein's case, it is incredibly disturbing. We have flight logs, we have information, names, that will come out.
I'm not ever going to let this story go because of what I heard from a source about Bill Clinton on a plane with Jeffrey Epstein. I'm not letting it go, ever. Ever.
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable.
Interesting, isn't it? A lot of talking, no disclosure of the files. And again, this is another subject that basically turns people away from Trump and kind of divides US again. If you think that Trump, being a billionaire, he never basically had anything to do with any parties and so on, think again. And this is a short video from NBC that was recorded in 1992 in Mar-a-Lago when Trump was with Epstein there. Nothing specific, but you kind of get the gist and why people are getting frustrated with Trump. On top of that, what you probably know, living in US, if you're living in US, is the situation with ICE, deportations, and all of this jazz, because it got to the point that it's in the big cities like LA, there's basically a turmoil on the streets because of that. And just for those of you who are listening to this in English but you're not in the United States and you don't really know, during the Biden administration, the immigration from Mexico was on a top level, the highest levels ever. The tons of people, because of the kind of not so tight immigration policy, basically made a lot of people come into US, and that was the record levels. That was like in 2022, that was 2.3 million people were stopped. In 2023, 2 million people were from illegal immigrants were stopped. We're not talking about those who made into the United States. And now Trump basically signed the document that ICE basically is removing people and deporting them. And many people, especially left, or basically left, it's against. And I want you to see what's going on there. This is a video that was recorded by the ICE, what's going on, how it looks like from the first person view, the planes and people being deported. You can watch the whole video, but basically it started a lot of controversy in US, and people are getting anxious, and there's a lot of media spinning this whole situation into emotional, showing like families which were separated, kids from parents and so on. But this is what's happening in LA. Look what many people are pointing to, which media is covering up. Listen to this.
You've likely seen the images of violence out of Los Angeles. But just like in 2020, it seems the city has been overwhelmed with peaceful protests.
Most of the afternoon and evening, demonstrations have been going on right outside the Federal Detention Center. Most of those demonstrators were very peaceful. They were chanting, they were shouting. Most people we've seen most of the evening have demonstrated peacefully, but again, there are some people who are more hardcore about what they're doing out here.
A fairly peaceful protest until just a few minutes ago.
Law enforcement officers try to bring under control these elements that have become an offshoot of what was a peaceful protest and demonstration. Chaos.
So what you see basically is spinning this whole thing into saying that it was peaceful, but we know that it wasn't. And if you look into the situation and videos from LA, it's showing that it's much more than peaceful, and many police officers were hurt, cars were burned, and the situation was much more dire than media is saying. But interestingly enough, look what's going on in Mexico. This is something
Mexican
surprising.
rioters are kicking Americans out of their country. Look at this. This is crazy. This is happening in Mexico City. They are destroying businesses. Look at this. Oh, there goes the glass. And they're going in. Oh, man, look at all the people filming. This is crazy. They're telling him to leave the country. This guy's writing to blank a gringo. That's not good. Here.
And so on and so on. So why am I basically talking about it? Is because we had issues with immigrants for a long time in Europe, and if you see situation in France, in Denmark, or Netherlands right now, in France, in Sweden, the situation is dire, and now the same thing happens in US and in Mexico at the same time. So I want you to kind of understand that the thing that we talked about last time about destabilization of the Europe and US right now, it's basically going on full throttle. And I want you to kind of look at this not from a local perspective, but from a global one, which basically shows that destabilization of the Western world is basically ongoing as we speak. We talk about Europe, basically, and when we talk about the immigrants, it's good to understand it from, or look at it from a Bible perspective. And listen to this.
What is the significant meaning of the colors behind the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse? Check this out.
The book of Revelation, especially the first 4 horses of the apocalypse. The question is, why these 4? Why these colors? There is information contained in the colors. God is not trying to confuse us, and He's not just throwing colors out there. There must be a rational justification for why He picked these 4. Take a look at your screen. What do you see? Here's the symbol, the national symbol of next door neighbor to Israel, Jordan. What colors do you see? Can you help me here? White, red, black, and green. And then if you go next door, inside the territory of Israel, there is the Palestinian, symbolized by that flag. What colors do you see on the national flag of Sudan? Let's go to Kuwait. Let's go to the United Arab Emirates. What colors do you see? All right, well, let's just go to Libya because it could just be coincidence here. Okay, let's go to Afghanistan. What do you see? Let's go to Syria. What do you see? Let's go to Iraq. What do you see? I wonder if God has successfully communicated.
What is
Isn't it interesting? I'm not really sure if we talked about it earlier in previous videos, but it's good to know that whole Europe is basically invaded by Islam. Because if you go through all those countries and ask, ChatGPT or whatever, what is the main religion there? It's like 60 to 95% is Islam. And it should not be surprising to us if we know how Islam is treating Christians. So we know if this thing already ongoing in Europe, then we will have issues soon enough because Islam will attack Christianity. But one thing that even if we saw this, I want you to kind of look at one thing that I don't know. It was just a thought, but. And what's going on in the Middle East and in US. Look at this. What colors do you see? The one thing that we don't see is black. Do you see where I'm going with this? The one color that is missing in flag of Iran and flag of Mexico is black, but the rest of 3 are there. So my thought was, maybe I'm wrong, that maybe in like a beginning stages, those 2 countries are going to play a role as well. And now it's all comes together that we will have the breaking of peace in Europe and in basically Europe, US, basically the whole Western countries, based on those 2 countries as well. What happened yesterday, which was the 14th of July, where basically Crypto Week started, and let me just give you one more thing, which happened yesterday, which started this whole Crypto Week, was the confirmation that Fedwire switched into ISO 2022. And why is that important? Because what started yesterday and is going to go to whole week, is the huge changes in how US kind of deals with crypto. First of all, it started with Fedwire with the change switched into ISO 2022, basically using cryptocurrencies for the instant payments. But then what you'll see, the Crypto Week is basically, it's all about the bills. It's all about how there are going to be changes proposed into law to kind of change the whole crypto space in US. There are going to be 3 things. the act, the Clarity Act, which is digital asset market clarity, which basically is trying to bring more clarity into the sphere of crypto in the United States, which will open, if that's going to happen, it's going to open the door for many institutions to just jump on the train. Second thing is the Genius Act, is basically guiding and establishing a national innovation for US stable coins, which is an additional subject in the whole crypto space. And three, anti-CBDC Surveillance State Act, which is basically all about the kind of cutting off the surveillance part of the CBDCs. And we'll see how this whole gonna go. But again, someone pointed out that the thing that happened with Iran might be a kind of redirecting attention from this thing, which basically goes into digital ID and control, and this whole thing, control aspect of the crypto, which will be put into law. So we'll not look at this, but then look at the theater in Iran. So we'll see how that's going to go, because Iran attacked the U.S. base in Qatar, as far as I know, and there was some ceasefire, but we'll see where that's going to go. But if the situation is going to come down, you'll know that it was all about the crypto. So we will destabilize the Europe and the U.S. Then we're going to make some crazy war or imitation of war in Iran. But then we're going to put the control of the crypto into the space, and we'll see where that's going to go. But again, what I'm trying to say is that everything complicates, because so many things pop up in all of those areas that we talked about earlier, in a war space, in a economical space, because we'll see how that's going to go and where the market's going to end up, because now it's on the top. But we know that if they really want to put this thing into play, they will have to kind of drop the market on, or create some kind of economical disaster. And so we've got a crypto week, which basically we'll see where that's gonna go. But then additional thing that we need to understand is what's happening in Israel, because on the religion front we've got something happen as well. Listen to this.
Israel National News, where they show just a small 5-second video clip of a red heifer that is being burned.
Well, actually, this wasn't the first time the Temple Institute rehearsed the red heifer ritual. Back in August 2024, just before the Tisha B'Av, Temple Institute held a symbolic ceremony near the Temple Mounts in Jerusalem Old City. Instead of using a real heifer, they used a cardboard cutout. A photo taken by journalist Macgregor captured the moment and caused a stir online. He said it was part of preparation for future temple worship. Then on July 8, 2025, just 2 days ago, the Temple Institute held what many are calling the final practice. This time, they burned an actual red heifer. The calf was one of the 5 brought from Texas in 2022. However, this particular heifer didn't meet kosher requirements. It had 2 black hairs, making it invalid for use in a real ceremony. Still, they went ahead and completed the full ritual. Their goal was to test how long it takes for the heifer to fully burn and turn into ashes. For many, this was more than a practice. It was a symbolic and prophetic act showing they are ready to rebuild the third temple. The red heifer ritual played a key role in restoring ritual purity, which is required before temple service can begin. According to Jewish tradition, the ashes of a perfect, completely red heifer are needed to purify those who will serve in the future temple. So, when will the actual ceremony take place? At this point, there is no official date. The Temple Institute is keeping details private. Still, some leaked reports suggest the real event might happen on Tisha B'Av 2025. This isn't confirmed, but several news sources have covered it, and many prophecy watchers believe
I'm going to pause here. First of all, burning the red heifer, the great test, the final test. It's fascinating because it pushes the whole narrative of the Third Temple forward. But again, I don't know if you remember when I recorded the video in March, I said if nothing's going to happen in March, there might be something happening in September or October because of the Rosh Hashanah and so on. And look, the October 6th through 13th is Sukkot dates. It's interesting. I'm gonna observe what's going to happen in Israel, because it would not be surprised, as I said, not in March, then in the later part of the year, because of the Rosh Hashanah.
July 8 was the last rehearsal before the real ceremony.
We don't know exactly when the full ceremony and ritual will take place, but the fact that they are practicing right now is pretty intriguing.
So that's kind of fascinating. I don't know if you knew that, so that's why I'm recording information about this. But moving forward with Red Heifer and moving forward with the Third Temple will play a major part in what's going to happen during the last days. So adding all those things together, it paints the picture that we kind of moving towards into something that might be a huge change worldwide. But one more thing I want you to kind of to hear, which is interesting, what's happening in Israel as well.
If you don't think that the Third Temple is being built or is already built right now, I have some news for you. There is already the infrastructure in place to support a very rapid prefab, and they're already putting everything in place right now. Check this out. I live in Jerusalem, and I'm going to show you right now that it is happening. And in fact, what you see here is a chairlift that they are putting in to the old city in Jerusalem. It's going to look like this. They're building a whole building. It's called the Kotel elevator. They're building a whole building to take people, see that? They're building a chairlift to take people up to the Temple Mount when the Third Temple is there. And so they have this whole area under construction. I've been here for like a year. They've had a wall there. You can hear the jackhammering during the day. They're ready right here. And then we also have this development.
So one thing that I'll add, if you go to the Jewish sides, yeah, they're talking about the Kotel elevator. It will take 2 years, and this whole thing was written in September 2024. So basically a year in, and you can watch the videos, what's going on, and kind of read about it. So it's ongoing. But let's continue.
They made road signs that say Harbet Hashem, which means the house of God. Like, they're directing people to the Third Temple already. Like, they've already got the signs up. You can see like the Jerusalem sign above it, and then Bet El above that. Like, so this is on the road. I think this is the road to the Dead Sea. So they're already putting all.
So they're putting the signs already to the Third Temple. It seems like it, which is interesting, because why would you put it if it's still years to be built?
All this stuff in place. There's already Jews going up to the Temple Mount and praying, and this has become like a regular thing. Which
was not a normal thing for many years. Jews were basically they could not go there to pray, and now it's normal, which is another interesting thing.
And there's also like an institute where it's right across from the chairlift I just showed you, where they have all the stuff for the temple already, like that goes inside the temple that they use to perform all the rituals from Leviticus. So
and that's another interesting thing, that there's going to be a lift that will be from the old city to the Temple Mount, and now and across the street there is a Temple Institute that she's going to show it in the next video, but basically have everything that needs to be will be needed in the Third Temple. So they can put everything from the Temple Institute on that lift, just bring it up and then put it in the Third Temple. So that's kind of interesting that everything is just going right away, and it's being built to be there. And so let's go into the Temple Institute and see what's going on there.
Inside the Temple Institute in Jerusalem, where they already have everything that they need for the third temple as far as the inside goes, the rituals and everything else. So I'm going to take you guys inside so that we can check it out. So when you first walk in the door, you can see the priestly garments here. I think these ones are linen, and they use a special type of dye to create these colors, which I'll talk about in a second. Here we have a snail that they use for the blue dye for the tzitzits, and you can kind of see here, it says that it's like a special dye also used for the curtains and priestly garments and for the tzitzits right there. And this is what the temple is going to look like. It is a floor model to scale, and I'm just going to let the audio cut in and explain it.
Rebuilt by King Herod, including all of its chambers and courts. 15 steps lead from the women's court to the eastern gate of the sanctified court, known as the Camp of the Shekhinah. This entrance is called the Nicanor Gate. Upon entering this gate into the court, we arrive at a small area called the Court of Israel, and continuing, we come to the platform in the temple of gold-plated shofars blown on Rosh Hashanah, together with glass on the silver trumpets, while the silver-plated shofar was...
So I don't want to play the whole video. I'm going to have a link in the description, but I want you to see that they have everything there. And the garments, the instruments.
These are the kosher measuring vessels that they're going to use in the ceremonies. Here we have...
That was interesting.
Have a vessel for roasting barley for the Omer offering.
So everything is there, and I want you to see just one more thing about this.
Righteous queen who would grace the God of Israel.
This doesn't wake you up, I don't know what will. This is the altar, and it's to scale, it's not full size. There's a ramp where they can drag the offering up and down from, you know, to the top. And this is modular, like it's completely prefab, and they can build it in minutes if they need to. They literally said that when we were there. Here we have the...
So that's fascinating. The additional thing that they have the altar, which is basically, you can put it in minutes. So if they're going to build the building, which I guess it's not going to be a hard thing to do if you have everything else prepared, then you can put it like a IKEA or Lego, and you can put it and everything is going to be there really fast. And one additional thing that what she recorded there about the Ark of the Covenant.
This is a replica, so don't get it twisted, but you have to hear this.
The Ark of the Covenant was never lost, but it is hidden, and the location of this chamber and the Ark's whereabouts is known to us. Although the Ark was not present in the Holy of Holies of the Second Temple, we do believe that it will be retrieved and brought to the Third Temple.
So that's what I want you to hear from all of this, that they're prepared, they're ready. They're building this whole infrastructure just to have it all done. So you see, this is what I want you to take from this video. It looks like in a war front, we're having this thing in Ukraine still happening. We've got this thing in the Middle East, which are boiling right now. We have the stabilization of the whole Western world in Europe and in US as well. We have the whole crypto thing basically moving towards huge changes that will have a global impact on each and every one of us, kind of dragging us towards digital ID and probably mark of the beast, close enough. Then we have a religious changes with the red heifer, with the third temple, which basically looks like it's moving really fast towards building it, and we know what from the prophecies what's going to bring the whole Antichrist and so on. So what I want you to take from this video is basically start talking to the Father, praying and asking, why am I here and why now? Because I think it's very important to understand why we're here as a church and why you're here as a person, and to kind of know where you're supposed to be and what you're supposed to do, to not miss the importance that God saw in putting us in this time on this place. So that being said, see you in the next video.